Now, what we are up against, in addition to this history, which was ill-advised, is now a series of ossified laws that were put in place in the 70s. Things like in California, our Lanterman-Petra-Short Act, which affords no consistency in treatment. This was a task force that suggested that untreated mental illness remain a feeder to the state's jail and prison system. ERs will be the dumping ground, and city streets will be an open-air asylum where people with mental illness are brutally victimized and die. Lanterman-Petra-Short Act maintains the silent genocide on our streets. If you are so severely mentally ill that you can be held against your will, and believe me, that requires only the most severe states of psychosis. If you say, I'm going to kill myself or somebody else, and you end up in the ER and then finally on a 72-hour hold, which is how we do it in California, if you then say 4 hours later, you know what, I've thought better of it. If you can answer the next 2 questions, do you know how to get food? Yeah, McDonald's is across the street. Do you have a place to live? My tent's over there on Reseda. That's it. Out. No treatment, no assessment, no ability to determine what the probabilities of future success are with your care. You can just go. Our civil rights have outweighed the self-evident need for treatment. Families are left desperate. I've worked with state senators in California who've gone up with family. Please let us help our homeless loved one. We have doctors, we have a bed, we have money, we have places for them to live and sleep and eat. Help us get them home so we can treat them. And we're told by Sacramento to take a hike. Who do you think you are? Desperate. There's resources for these people, and they are dying in the LA County area at the rate of 3 a day. My question is, to my friends and colleagues and representatives in Los Angeles and California, what does the body count need to be? What is the body count before you give up crazy ideas like building 4 walls will treat mental illness? This is the current policy that we're pursuing in California, is that if we just have housing, it will end. Somewhere between 60 and 85% of the patients are resistant. The vast majority have serious mental illness and drug addiction, and 4 walls are not going to do anything if they would even go in. Now, what this is at its core, the symptom that we are managing is something called anosognosia. Okay? Anosognosia is a deficit of self-awareness, a condition in which a person with disability is unaware of having it. It was first named by Joseph Babinski. You clinicians in here, famous neurologist at the turn of the century, the Babinski sign, which is something when you're doing a neuro exam as a medical student, it's the very first thing you're taught about. Babinski noticed this and characterized the term anosognosia. We as clinicians see it all the time in stroke. If somebody has a right cortical stroke, the left side of the body goes out, and the patient doesn't know it. Literally, you can show the patient your hand, it flops over, they'll go, huh, whatever that is. Anyway, the same condition develops in dementia. We rush in. We would be considered inhuman not to rush in on behalf of demented patients with anosognosia. They don't have insight into what's happening to them. Encephalopathy, a medical condition, causes the brain not to work. All right, stay away from me, I don't want help. Inhuman. But when the same condition, the same symptom evolves in the setting of a psychiatric illness, we privilege it in the law. We privilege it. And we protect the patient, we protect that symptom from allowing us to get at the patient to prevent them from dying. Drug addicts get anosognosia. Manic psychosis, anosognosia. Schizophrenics, anosognosia. It's the same biology as in dementia and encephalopathy and other brain conditions, and yet we privilege it in the law, and people are dying. What does the body count need to be? What does it need to be before we will try something a little different, closing the gap between harm to self or other and need for care? I have a suggestion. How about, this was proposed to me a couple days ago, and I thought, this is brilliant. This would get around all of the problems. I'd love to change the laws, and I'm working on it, but why not an advance directive for psychiatric care? When somebody is diagnosed with a serious mental illness, why can't we pull out something like what we have in California, the POST form? It's a template that goes, if my brain isn't working, if I'm having the following conditions, this is what I want you to do on my behalf. Same thing as advance directive for medical care, right? When somebody is in an ICU and they can't, their brain isn't working right, we have directives what to do. We should have the same thing with psychiatry. We should have that. Every psychiatrist should have it. In general practitioners too, primary care people should have a template that says, you know what, we have your advance directive for healthcare. If you go into a serious medical crisis, let's get your advance directive for psychiatric care. When your brain stops working, which I'm sorry, it's a high probability of that with your condition. I want to be sure to get you back in and back to work and back to where you can thrive. Thriving is the final goal here. And let's remind ourselves, dementia is an inexorable progressive condition that we cannot change. And yet we jump in on that one. Schizophrenia, when they manifest anosognosia, if we don't intervene, we are condemning them to future deterioration and the possibility of being irretrievable with a treatable disease whose course can be changed dramatically with early intervention. So the disease that we can actually change the course of, we privilege anosognosia, and the disease for which it's inexorable, well, that one we jump all over. How crazy is that? We must change this. We got to change it.